So the first thing we want to do is just double check that SFDX is properly installed and configured. So we can do that by listing all of the orgs that are available here. And we can do that with the SFDX force org list command. Hit enter. And you'll probably just see your hub org right here. But you should see connected, and as long as you see that, you should be all good. Let me zoom out here. But essentially, up here you have your hub orgs, and then down here you have your test org, and down here you have your scratch orgs. So if you're not familiar with hub orgs and scratch orgs, a hub org is very similar to a regular Salesforce developer org. A scratch org, however, is kind of like a disposable org that you spin up and you can develop or test against. I think it'll be more clear once we start working with them. So if you don't fully understand it, don't worry about it right now. It's still just an abstract concept. So what I'm going to do first is just make a project folder for this. Okay, so now that we're in our project folder, the first thing we want to do is create an actual SFDX project. So we can do that with SFDX force project create, and then -n, and let's call this learn SFDX. Hit enter. If we list our files, we're going to see this new folder that was created, and we can show what's inside there. We have a README, a config, and a force app, and a SFDX project.json. Let's take a look at this with our text editor. You can do that with the code dot, which the dot is for the current directory. Okay. So just close out of that. Now this is our Learn SFDX project folder, and we have our config, which is a default scratch org definition, and then we have our source code. So I'm not going to dive into this now. The important part I want you to see is this project scratch definition.org. Now we can also change this. So let's just call this Learn SFDX. So let's save that, and let's go back to our command line. Like I mentioned, we now have the scratch definition. So what we can do with that is we can actually create a new scratch org using that definition. So we're in our project folder. Let's make sure of that. Okay, we're in SFDX. Now let's list. Okay. So we actually want to change into our Learn SFDX folder. And that was just a quick shortcut. If you hit tab, it'll try to auto-complete for you. We're in our Learn SFDX directory. Now this is a longer command, so just bear with me on this. As we start all commands, we want to start with SFDX force org create. We're going to add a couple flags and options to this as well. The first thing we want to do is let's use the -s flag, which tells this project that we want this scratch org to be our default scratch org for this project. The next flag we want to add is the file flag, or is the config file flag, and basically we want to tell it to create a scratch org from our definition. So we'll pass it that definition file we had earlier, and that was up here, but we're in the Learn SFDX, so we only need this part of the file name. Okay, next we want to use the -a flag. This lets us again create an alias. So we'll call this learn scratch. And then hit enter. Okay, cool. You should see something similar to this where a scratch org was created. Now, if we go back to our SFDX force org list command, we should now see that new scratch org. Perfect. And we see that it's set as the default for this project right here. Okay, now I'm going to show you a shortcut to open our org. We can just do SFDX force org open. And the org will automatically open in a new window. Alright, great. So we set up our first scratch org and opened it using the CLI.